Come close to the microphone.
Hello, everyone.
This is my dad. Say hello. You might have to bend down a little bit so they can actually see you.
All right, okay, like that. Yeah,
They always be like, "Where's your dad?"
I'm Ubernick's dad.
Hello everyone, I never thought I would have to record a video like this. This is like my 15th attempt, so hopefully this is going to be the one. But you can't tell from the title, unfortunately my father, Eric, passed away on the 19th of July after battling cancer. He was initially diagnosed back in November, and he did undergo treatment. He had chemo, and we thought that it had worked. He was recovering and doing very well. Then earlier this year, he had some issues with his eyesight. My mother took him back to hospital, and after some more scans and tests, it had been found that the cancer had spread to his brain. So once I got that news, obviously I live in the US now, and I happened to be over in London for a Halo event. So at the beginning of June, I flew from London back to Belfast, and I've been back in the UK with my family ever since. And I'm so grateful that I came back when I did, as I got to spend all of June and, up until the day my dad passed, with my dad every single evening for multiple hours every single day. And I'm just so grateful that I got to do that and have that time with him, as, if I was away in the US and got the news that dad had passed, or if I wasn't able to get over to be with him in time, it probably would have destroyed me for the rest of my life. And even if, it does still hurt and sting and feel unfair and all these other emotions, I'm at least glad that I have the closure that I was able to spend that time with dad, and I got to tell him how appreciative I was, or I am, of him. And I got to fill him in with how my life is going and just have those special chats with him that I really would have hated to not have got the chance to have with him if I hadn't come back home to be with him. But in this video, I'm going to try my best to not get hyper emotional. As I said, this is like my 15th attempt, so you can probably tell how it's been going up to this point. But I want to just kind of tell you guys a bit about my dad and the kind of man he was, and maybe that will give you more insight into why I am the way that I am. Because as this whole situation has been going on, I've got to spend a lot of time with my family, and I've got to chat with them. And a lot of them have said that I am very much like my dad in a lot of ways, which has been really lovely to hear, because I always looked up to my dad so much. So hearing that I am like him in any form is super nice. But let's get into the kind of person and man that my dad was. He was the hardest working person I've ever met. He worked basically from the age of 15 up until 70, until he was kind of forced to stop working. That was probably his biggest flaw, that he worked too hard. He was up at 6 a.m. every single day without fail. There would be many, many times over my life where I'd be up until 6 in the morning, still gaming or streaming, and I'd go downstairs to say what's up to dad, and he would say, "How was your streaming last night?" That was his peak dad joke that he absolutely loved. He would say, "Are you going to be screaming tonight?" "Oh, I mean streaming." And then he would laugh after, every single day without fail. And I laughed for him every single day. Admittedly, it is pretty funny, but he would never know what a stream properly was. He had like a slight idea after I explained it 50 times, but I still don't know if he ever fully grasped what a stream or a YouTube video actually really was. He would watch YouTube videos on his iPad of different building things and cars. He absolutely loved cars, so he would watch YouTube himself. So I think he started to get the idea, but in the early days, he had absolutely no clue. But one thing about my dad that I appreciated was he never judged. He never tried to enforce his way of life onto me. Of course, he was a builder. He built this desk that I work at. He built these walls around me. He built this entire house that I grew up in. He was a very, very talented man. And unfortunately, none of that talent fell onto me. I am absolutely useless with a hammer. I am terrible. I might be good at playing video games, but when it comes to doing anything functional, I didn't get that from him whatsoever. I did get my height. My dad was, I think, 6'2", 6'3", somewhere in that range. I'm 6'5", so I did beat him in the end, but God, it's really hard. My dad was also just very optimistic and hopeful. You know, he would maybe take on more jobs than he should have in his life, but he always had this spirit of, it'll work out, things will be okay, I'll make it work. And that's very much something that I believe in. I'm very optimistic. I'm very much someone that thinks it'll work out. Obviously, with my line of work as a YouTuber and a streamer, it's a little bit random how things are gonna go, but I very much believe that things will work out. I'm very optimistic. And my dad was always right there behind me, telling me how proud he was. You know, even if he didn't fully understand, he would see all these different opportunities pop up for me, and he was always just so happy and excited to hear about new things that I was doing, you know, from the events that I would go to, from me getting to meet different viewers and fans, if you want to call them that, at events. My dad would always want to hear about every single interaction that I had with one of you guys. You know, I got to do some work last year as a model, which is crazy, I know, with this face, but my dad could not have been more proud. When I was telling him about this, he would tell people that he was doing work for about me. He would get them to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Like, he was definitely one of, if not my biggest fan, which really meant the world to me. And I did get to tell him this fairly often, which I'm very glad that I did. Okay. I'm not doing this again for like the 16th time. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going. Random little story from my childhood with my dad that from a very young age really stuck with me. Just kind of really showed the kind of guy that my dad was. I remember when I was a kid 20 years ago, I really wanted a GameCube. This one sitting right next to me here, actually. I remember I read it in a magazine. I saw a new Pokemon game for the GameCube had come out, and I just thought, I need to get a GameCube so bad. So I marched outside to my dad. I think I was like 8, 9 years old, something like that. And I said, Dad, I really want a GameCube. Can you please give me the money for it? And he said, son, what have you done to deserve the money? What have you done to earn this money? So I came back with, well, I rub your hands every day because he enjoyed having his hand rubbed. I would open the gate for him as he drove back in from work. So of course, you know, that's hard work, opening a gate, giving him a hand rub, which was probably a terrible one as well because I was 8 years old and probably very weak. And he said, okay, I'll think about it, you know, come back in a little bit. So about 30 minutes later, he calls me back outside. And he pulls out a wad of cash and he hands me the money needed for the GameCube, and he says, I appreciate your hard work. And then Mom took me to go get the GameCube. And I know this might seem like a random story, you know, me talking about a time my dad gave me money for a GameCube. But it showed me that he was just always so willing to be kind, you know, make me feel rewarded for something, even if it wasn't a big thing whatsoever. He was always willing to do little gestures like this for not only me, but my sister and pretty much everyone around him. My dad's funeral was very eye-opening for me. You know, I knew that a lot of people liked and loved my dad, but seeing the funeral really put it into perspective for me. There was like 300 plus people there, something crazy. And everyone that I spoke to pretty much all said the same thing, that Eric, my dad, was a lovely man. He was always so helpful, always there to lend advice or, you know, help if they needed it. And it really just showed me that my dad was, you know, one of a kind. You don't get many people like that, especially nowadays, that are so willing to, you know, put other people ahead of them. You know, even if it meant physically exhausting yourself or mentally draining yourself. If it meant that my dad could help someone that he cared about, he would have done that. And it really showed me, like, my dad was just a special guy, and I'm just so grateful that I got to be my father's son. Truly, you know, he really was like a one-of-a-kind man. And I'm so glad that, you know, with the accomplishments that I've had, he got to see and he got to be proud of me, because growing up, that's something that I just really cared about. I always just wanted to make Dad proud, because I always looked at him as so successful in his own way. He was always so, you know, he was self-made, and that was something that I really respected and wanted to do for myself. So I'm glad that my dad got to witness me kind of doing that in my own path. And it is thanks to you guys for watching that, you know, I got to make my dad proud and he got to see that. But I don't want this video to go on and on forever. I just wanted to kind of tell you guys a little bit about my dad and the kind of man he was and why he was so special. Hopefully this will give you a little bit more insight into my dad and maybe into why I am the way that I am. He really was a special person that I will forever honor and work hard for the rest of my life. So thank you all very much for watching. I love you, Dad. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.